What's up, guys? Max here, and welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, taking in a bunch of discussions and topics from the fighting game community or a multitude of fighting games, about the history of them, the future of them, and pretty much anything around those kind of topics. Previously on Real Talk, we were talking about fighting game saturation, how there seemed to be a lot of fighting games really fast last year especially. Now there's not much coming out very soon, and the fact that Darkstalker's not performing well could potentially mean that Darkstalkers are going to be dead and we're not going to see any future installments of anything from that franchise, which is kind of a bummer, but we talked a bit about that in the previous episode if you guys want to check that out. Today I'm going to talk about something that happened over the past couple of weeks in the fighting game community, which is technically Collusion, which is like two players at the higher level echelon in a tournament, whether it's like the finals or something like that, wherever money is being distributed, like have a chat with each other and essentially discuss the fact that they want to split the winnings between each other to have a more relaxed finals, other than the fact that they really need the money, you know? Instead of fighting over all the money, they essentially split the money between each other. The common term for this is known as pot splitting. Splitting the pot of money between each of you so that you technically, one person's going to get first place, but you're both going to get the same money because you're going to evenly distribute it in the end. Now, there's been some other stuff that's happened a while back, even when esports especially. I remember back when I was working for Machinima, covering esports on the Machinima Versus channel, there was a huge thing with Collusion that happened, and I think it was with League of Legends. And the developers of League of Legends found out about it, and they got super pissed off, and they fined, or not even fined, I'm not too sure, but there was a lot of huge repercussions that came as a result of finding out about Collusion. However, this thing of pot splitting has been so prominent within the fighting game community since I can remember, that it's almost something that I kind of took for granted. You just kind of I always expected it to be there, that these guys are probably pot splitting and we're still going to be able to enjoy this match. The reason I'm talking about this, and this is based off an event that happened a couple of weeks ago between Chris G and Justin Wong at Final Round, and Final Round was pretty much one of the biggest tournaments for fighting games we've had in a very long time. And during the end of this tournament, what happened was a couple of these players came, or these guys essentially thought to themselves that, well, we always do the same thing and people don't like seeing this, the Morrigan playstyle with Dr. Doom missiles and you constantly trying to get in, let's do something different. And they essentially chose random against each other, random all against each other, in the thought that they would want to give the community or the audience something better to watch than the usual stuff that they're always seeing in finals. I don't think that Justin or Chris, for the most part, want to ruin the community or anything. Not at all. These guys absolutely love the fighting game community. They make money around it, and they love what they do because they get to play these freaking video games. And at the same time, I don't think their decision was based on that. I think they actually had something proper in mind when they thought this decision, and even the audience cheered them on. But what happened was a huge backlash from a ton of people in the community that don't understand that pot splitting happens all the time. So what happened really on the underneath is that Justin and Chris in the finals already agreed with each other that they would split the pot with each other after this was over, and no matter who won, whether it was first or second, they were going to get the same amount of money. One person would take first place, but to them it didn't, technically really matter because you're both getting the same amount of cash, and a lot of times when you're competing it's to get the cash at the end of the tournament. Now, a lot of people don't or didn't understand that this happens, and it really upset a lot of people. Mostly because they did something like Random All, and you saw these random characters for a few matches, and then they played their real teams. And a lot of people in the audience, I think, left, and some people were even cheering on the Random All thing, but there was, like I said, a huge backlash amongst forums and the larger majority of the community that you can't do this. The bigger backlash even came from sponsors of said events, the fact that these sponsors put all this money or even add to the pot bonus, and if it's going to be extremely obvious that the people in the finals are going to be, colluding, that they're going to be telling each other, we're just going to split the money and we don't care who gets first, technically, even though that's not exactly the case, that happens very often, that these sponsors are going to be like, well, we're not going to give you any money anymore. What's the point if you're not going to take it seriously? So, I don't think, like I said, I don't think that Justin or Chris weren't taking things technically seriously, but what they weren't respecting technically was the spectacle event of fighting games. When it comes to tournament level of fighting game players, there's a very, 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 very small percentage of people that are actually able to do well in tournaments with fighting games. However, there is an extremely large percentage of people that are able to do or enjoy fighting games to a mid to high level and watch tournament footage and try to learn things from these tournament players. especially when it comes to things being very exciting. Now, here's my interpretation of why people can get very upset around this. After you've been exposed to fighting games and fighting game tournaments for a while, you kind of come to expect excitement. You come to expect this huge spectacle of energy and just all of these people celebrating a moment, a wonderful moment that happens between like an underdog and a top player. There's things that are just cemented in fighting game history that are these huge moments, like the Evo Daigo moment, Justin coming back with Cyclops with nothing left. It's all these things like are put together. These are the things that make the fighting game community the most exciting. It's also the drama between the players. How important this match is to somebody versus how important the match is to somebody else. And in the finals of the biggest tournament we've had, technically of 2013, the two guys that were playing, it wasn't anything. It was a complete throwaway match to the point of which they could use random all. In the terms of a spectator, that's like the biggest, like, F you. I could definitely see that from the perspective of somebody else. Like, in my opinion, I wasn't surprised to think that they're probably pot splitting all the time, which is usually what happens, I'd imagine. But when you take away the spectacle or the chance for there to be excitement, that's what gets people a little upset. Because it's like, well, I've been waiting. How crazy is this shit gonna be? Is there gonna be, like, you know, a Marvel 3 finals from EVO 2011 where PR Balrog gets that freaking command grab? Is there going to be this thing where he's able to stop Phoenix from coming out? Is there going to be all this stuff? Is Justin going to be able to stop Morgan? Oh, they picked random all. Fuck. I think that's exactly what people are saying. So it isn't exactly important that collusion happens. I know that it happens, and it's a pot splitting is just a thing. It's the thing that top players do. They look after each other. But what needs to be regarded is the fact that this is much bigger than a couple of guys splitting a little bit of money at the end of a tournament. It's also about the growth of the spectator sport, and if this, like, something like this gets out to, like, you know, if this is the impression that this is given upon whoever sponsors or an audience or stuff like that, it's really hard to grow as far as a community and as far as, like, something that getting more people to enjoy. As much as my stuff isn't about, like, making people the upper echelon of, like, tournament ready, the stuff that I create at least gets people introduced to the fact that fighting games are exciting. They're really fun, and they're really, really fun to watch, especially on a spectator level. And if you want to get good at fighting games, I think the stuff that I create is a good entry level to understand of how hype and how excited you can possibly be over something just a 1-versus-1 match of Ryu versus Ken. It can be amazing. It can be the most exciting thing of any video game you've ever had if you have that one match that is so freaking awesome and you're never gonna forget. I think that's important. I think the excitement and the hype of fighting games is one of the things that really keeps it alive. And this kind of just, like, took it down a complete notch and realized that, oh, this is just kind of like a business for these guys. So, like I said, I don't think these dudes, I don't think Chris or Justin, because I know Justin personally, have any intentions to do any harm to the fighting game community at all. And I think Justin even came out immediately and apologized that we're really sorry, we didn't mean to cause anything like this. So I wouldn't blame these guys for it. I would just, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon again. I think it's something that I've never really appreciated, and I've been asked to pot split many times. And I remember, like, in the few big tournaments I have, it's like we're pot splitting like $100, dude. Like, what does really matter? It was also the fact, like, when I was first asked if I wanted a pot split at the end of a tournament, I was legitimately confused. Like, I never really made it to higher, like, end level of tournaments anymore. This is like between 2006 to 2008, 2009. And I never made it to, like, the end level of tournaments very much. And when, you know, the guy comes up, he's like, "So, man, you wanna split the winnings or something?" And I was just so legitimately confused. It makes me seem like I was an asshole back then for saying no. But I literally said, well, isn't like that the whole point? Like, the fact that we're in the finals and we gotta, like, play as hard as we can against each other to try to win the money? Like, isn't that the whole point? And I said no, and it makes me seem like I was a total asshole back in the day, because generally, most guys accept pot splittings, because the more I won tournaments down the line, it happened every single time. Like, every time I was in the finals with some guy, he would ask me if I'd want a pot split, and it got to the point where, like, okay, so this is a common thing. And I would literally ask him, well, how badly do you need the money? Because a lot of the times I wasn't joining fighting game tournaments for the winnings. Like, that was the least important thing to me. The fact that you're splitting, like, I don't know, like $100 to $200 in winnings. Like, that doesn't seem that important to me. I was literally joining because I wanted to play, like, you know, a lot of the really good guys in a spectacle where you had a bunch of people watching. I always wanted people to be watching. So I ended up just telling the guys that, you know, if it's really that important to you and if you're in this for the money, I'll plot split with you, sure. And I think during both of those times, my motivation to win was so, like, jarred that I think I only won, like, the 2 times that happened after that was, like, I only won once out of those 2 times. I went like 50-50. And it was just, I'm like, this sucks. It's like, we have to, I feel like this is the whole point behind the entire thing, so... In general, to summarize this whole thing, you guys can probably sound, like, hearing my voice, how conflicted with myself I am about this thing, because it's kind of happened to me before. I respect the players, I respect their decisions, I respect for them looking after each other. But what I respect the most of fighting games is the spectacle. A lot of guys like to focus on the players, and I think the players are what make fighting games great, but I think the games themselves are what's the most important. And if you have, like, something other than the 2 players at the end of a huge tournament doing anything but playing their asses off to get first place, and whether or not that desire is to be the most amazing at a fighting game, to win a trophy or to win money, it doesn't matter. Like, there needs to be passion behind what they do, and if it's obvious that these people are, like, doing something other than their best, then it does not go very well with the community. And really, guys, you can spot that stuff a mile away. Like, anytime I see that there's a match that it's very obvious this dude is throwing the match, it's just obvious from, like, a 6-mile distance, so... But that's my overall thought on the situation. This has been kind of a rough commentary, and I've been trying to figure out what to say for a long time about this stuff. But like I said, you have to respect what the players do because they're the ones that make the fighting games great, and I highly doubt that after this whole debacle has ended, that anything like this is ever going to happen again. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of Real Talk, I'd appreciate a thumbs up or a comment below, and if you have a suggestion for another episode, something that involving the fighting game community or anything of that sort, I'll try to tackle it later on. And if you haven't had a chance, please check out the latest episode of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 The Online Warrior, where I finally hit High Lord, and I've also done an Injustice review similar to the style of Assist Me. Until then, my name is Maximilian, and I'll see you guys next time.